Welcome to Get It Managed. How to set up your rental portfolio in Excel, Part 1. We're going to start with the blank sheet in Excel and we're going to add some title cells in row 1. In A1, type property address. In B1, type stage. We're going to add a drop down to the column. To exclude our title cell from the formatting, Control-click on B1. Then go to the top of the page to Data and select Data Validation. In the Data Validation Criteria window, select List. Then we will add 5 different stages to our properties. Pre-leased, those are units that have been rented and we're waiting for someone to move in. Vacant rent ready, VRR, ready to lease. Occupied, units that we're receiving funds for now. Eviction, units that are occupied where we're not receiving funds. And turnover, someone recently moved out, we need repairs, and we're not receiving funds. Now that we've added our drop-down list, we're going to move on to column C, and we're going to type current rent. We're going to wrap that text so that it fits nicely in our column, and then we're going to select our title row, and we're going to center that so that it fits nicely on our cell. In column D, we're going to type target rent. And again, we're going to wrap that text. And on column E, we're going to add taxes due. Now, some properties have taxes due on different months if you have them in different states. So you can exclude this cell if they're all due on the same day. Again, we're going to format this entire column to short date. And we're going to start adding our properties. Now, you want to do the property address on all of these. I'm just going to write property number all the way to 25, and I'm going to give some of these stages. Let's assume that most of our portfolio here is occupied, so I'm going to format all of these into occupied, and then I'm going to select random properties and give them random stages so that we have some diversity in our portfolio. Then we're going to go to our current rent and we're going to type in what we're currently receiving. I'm going to format this into our accounting. Again, Control-click the first one to exclude. And we're going to make it money signs. I'm going to write zeros for anything other than occupied because we're not receiving rent on those. And then we're going to write down the actual amount that we're getting for each of the occupied units. Okay, now for the target rent, there are 3 different phases of the target rent. Essentially, this is what you're wanting to get out of each of the units in rent. Phase 1 is the historical rent, so what you have received in the past. And I use these in 2 different scenarios. Underperforming portfolio, so the portfolio is in crisis, or initial analysis, which we're doing now. So we're going to go with historical rent right now. In phase 2, we use market rent, so what others around your area are currently asking with a similar property. You can use tools like Zillow, Rentometer, and House Canary to run your analysis on these. And finally, there's a phase 3. So this is when you become an industry-leading portfolio where you set the standard on what the rents should be. For this particular one, though, we're going to just use historical rent. So what you're currently getting should match what your target rent is. We're going to format this to accounting so that it shows our money signs. And then we're going to add our taxes due date. Let's pretend that these are all in the same state. So I'm just going to write that date twice and then format these all the way to the bottom. So in January, I can expect an expense for taxes on all of these properties. Then we're going to go into the sum function at the bottom of our sheet so that we can create some totals. We're going to use equals sum. Then we're going to select the range that we're trying to add, and then we're going to enter, and it'll give us a total. Then we're going to go into creating a chart so that we can know how many of our units are in each of the stages. Again, we're only using 25 properties here, but you could have up to thousands. There are other software that you can use, but if you wanted to use Excel to run your numbers, this is a good way to give you visibility on your vacancy loss, occupancy percentages, and so on. And on here, we're going to use the count if function. So we're going to do count if, select our range, and then we're going to do a comma, and in parentheses we want to say what we want to count. So in this particular one, we're going to say occupied, and then we're going to drag that cell all the way down, and then we're just going to change the word in the parentheses to match what we're looking for. So in this case, we're going to do pre-leased. Then on the bottom one, we're going to do VRR. Occupied, we're going to leave the same. Eviction, we change to eviction. And turnover, we're going to change the word to turnover. And at the bottom, we created a total. So again, we're going to use the same function we used for the addition one for the current rent and target rent. So we're going to do equals sum, then the range. And yeah, don't forget your equal sign, because then it won't do it. And we're going to select the range, and we have a total of 25 properties, which matches what we have, means we are ready. We're going to add a thick bottom border here so that we can have our total, and we're going to insert a cell and expand it a little bit so we can create some space for a chart. We're going to select the area we want to graph, then we're going to insert a pie chart. And we're going to remove the title because we don't need a title on here. You can add a title if you want, but I'm not. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And then I'm going to add my data labels. And I'm going to do the data call out so that I can know what percentages are what for our portfolio here. And you can play around with these formattings. We're just going to do best fit. We're going to make it a little bit larger so that we can see what percent of our portfolio is where. And then we're going to do some formatting here so that it looks pretty. So we're going to remove our grid lines. Then we're going to go to our title row here, and we're going to add some pretty colors. We're going to go with the blue and then the white text. Then we're going to scroll down to our properties, and I'm going to give them an outline so that they're all divided with lines. And then I want to remove the outline from my chart so that you don't see that square around it. And now when you change the stage on any given property, then your graph will automatically update for you. Now we have current status of our portfolio. If anything were to change from turnover to occupied, you want to make sure to update the current rent as well. And this will help you track the performance, which would be part 2 of our series here. I just want to go back real quick, make sure that we have selected the correct range. As you can see, is from B3 to B27. So you want to make sure that all of your measures here have the same range. That completes our part 1 in our series. Stay tuned for part 2, 3, 4, and 5.